Alright, it's about 10 minutes started. Welcome to the, well, this is the only session today. Normally I would say the afternoon session, but you know, we're having the one session today. So, welcome to the Occupational Safety and Health Training. Or, if you read it from the poster, you should read Laboratory Safety and Health Training, right? My name is Chen-Peng. Now this is where you are, National Chen-Peng University. This is where I came from a few hours ago. China Medical University is located in Taichung. Anybody who doesn't know Taichung, raise your hand. I could be a tour guide. Okay, well, if you get a chance to visit, Taichung is in the middle of Taiwan. Okay, you just take on your Taiwan map, right? In the middle part, it's like Taiwan is like a big leaf, right? To the left, near the harbor, Taichung Harbor. That's where Taichung is. It's a very nice place to visit. Okay. For example, you know, it's not, well, in southern Taiwan, Kaohsiung, usually all year round, it's pretty warm. But not necessarily so in Taichung. Taichung is a little bit drier. If you come from a continental weather pattern, okay, then Taiwan is definitely an area of high humidity, right? But just among different areas in Taiwan, Taichung is relatively drier. So it's a pretty nice place to visit. Now the other good part about Taichung is, aside from my university, okay, well, in any direction. For example, you headed west. In 50 kilometers, you'll reach the seashore. Then you turn around, make it another 50 kilometers. Go back to Taichung and make it another 50 kilometers. Headed east. You're on the mountainside. Okay, so it's pretty nice. I enjoy that place. We do biking a lot. No, we don't do rock climbing, but we do mountaineering a lot too. So, welcome. You get a chance. If you get a chance, I'm pretty sure that's what you want to do while you're on this big island, right? You're on a tour around. I work for the Department of Occupational Safety and Health. Okay? That's why they got me here today. Another reason is before coming back to Taiwan and work for China Medical University, I was working for the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, specifically National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. But normally it's referred to as NIOSH. Okay? You may not be too familiar with that term, but after today's session, I'm pretty sure you'll get some idea about that. What's that entity? Okay? It's a pretty big organization, but in a way very similar to Taiwan's Occupational Safety and Health Research Institute. What we did there was developing methods, for example, for workplace monitoring, sampling, and we also developed animal models, okay, for testing, for example, dermatitis, okay, different dermatosis or sensitization. I was there for a good 5 to 6 years. Within that period, I spent about 2 years working with respirators. Now, Tainan actually, as I walked in, you know, I was riding on the Taiwan high-speed rail and getting to Taiwan Railroad. Okay? And when I stepped into Tainan, you know, I took a real good breath, because a deep breath. The weather here is pretty nice. In Taichung right now, we have a cloud of PM 2.5. You know what that thing is, right? PM 2.5 means they're very tiny particles, particulates, with a diameter of 2.5 micrometer suspended in the air. Okay. Yes, we do. That's another thing you could find in Taichung, because Taichung is, in a way, very similar to a big basin. Okay, so during the daytime we have quite heavy of an air pollution particles. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about this afternoon. I'm going to spend some time introducing to you, that's my hobby, introducing respirators. All right? There's more selection than N95 respirator or N95. You probably are thinking N95 mask, right? That's the generic term people use to describe those respirators. But I'm going to bring you into this, well, into about 4 short minutes, all right? For a while, maybe we can step into the world of respirator. I want to show you really, if you're concerned with air pollution, or if you're working with chemical hazards in your laboratory, and you are considering using respirators, what you should know, what you should consider. All right, so there are several sections today. My purpose here this afternoon is to guide you through hazard communication. Okay? You want to understand these chemical hazards, then how would you understand them? I assume most of you are working. I took a glance at your home department. So if I'm understanding this correctly, most of you are either working with biological agents or chemical agents. So something you need to know about those hazards that could be present in your laboratory and what you can do to prevent exposure. Okay? You probably are thinking you're using sufficient protection. But as a matter of fact, oftentimes you're not. Okay? When you're preparing samples, do you do that in a evaluation book? You say, yeah, sure I am. You know, I'm pretty smart. I know how to protect myself. Now then the question is, have you checked the transport velocity of the filter or the ventilation board? It's a pretty simple rule of thumb. If you're hearing something funny, there's something wrong with that ventilation board. You know how that could happen? Do me a favor, you know, after today, I don't want you to waste the whole 3 hours this afternoon here. So you got to learn something. Bring some information back to your lab. One thing is you can check your ventilation board. There's always a filter behind the ventilation board, but before the pipeline. Okay, so when you switch it on, if you're hearing a very, I'm not going to say loud, but it's kind of noisy, okay, or irregular sound coming off, that's a good sign. The filter is being blocked. Blocked by what? All those particles suspending from getting into the air from your samples. When I say particle, you probably are thinking dust, right? Not necessarily. When you do pipetting, you're transferring samples. You're using your pipetters, automatic at the door. That last drop, you're being carefully trained how to deliver the last drop, right? But you don't know is when you're delivering those drops, you're generating aerosols of very small diameters and very light density. They're able to get into the air quickly. Now, think about it. That's a human habit. When we do pipetting, we lean forward, right? You want to get a closer look, so you lean forward naturally. And you bring your airway pretty close to the cloud of aerosols inside the ventilation, okay? You probably never thought of it that way. I'm going to tell you what you should know. Hazard communication. Now the other thing that happens a good deal in the laboratory, I don't do wet chemistry anymore. But when I did, I still distinctively remember how people kept fighting for space. Okay? You got a lot of sample vials, bottles, containers, and a lot of them actually are not correctly labeled. Okay? You're supposed to label it. I don't mean just write down the sample belongs to whom and the date that you prepared them. You need to tell people more, a little bit more. Think about it. If you step into the laboratory, you're a new guy, you're a new kid on the block, what would you do when you see those vials? It's everywhere. Okay? So that's actually legally required. When you're preparing samples, you need to label them. your question probably is, you know, you're talking about 1 mil vial, those are pretty small one, gas chromatograph. Well, I'm not telling you to label every single vial, but what you should do is at least spend some time making a note somewhere, telling people what are these vials for. Okay? If there's any chemical inside, tell them what it is. Right? It's not secret. Okay, it's not proprietary information. So you're saying, you know, you can go on to your experiments safely, but in the meantime, also you should be concerned with how people's safety around you. All right? And I would also tell you, well, I'll give you some pointers on how to manage your laboratory. I'm not going into specific cases for everyone. You all work in different laboratories. You have your own rules, all right? You have your own, you know, codes of behaviors in the laboratory. It varies. For example, if you're working with biological agents, okay, you're manipulating microorganisms, okay, or even you're experimenting with infectious agents, then the way that you want to take precautions about the protocols could be very different from people handling chemical samples. Okay? So I'm just going to give you some common grounds that people usually step into in this case. And then I will take a turn. I will make a turn. Okay? I will switch to talking about PPE equipment that you may want to consider when you're working in the laboratory. But by no means PPE is your top choice. Okay? You guys are far back there, so you don't get to. You haven't. Did you know this sampling among some toys here? Yeah, well, for you guys in the back row, you know, you probably don't get to see it. Not to worry. I'm going to pass them around so you guys can see. All right. When it comes to laboratory safety and health, you would try the strategies that you would usually try to increase the safety is by applying some engineering controls or administrative controls. You don't resort to PPE immediately. All right, this is my favorite game. You know, I'm going to do that now. Sooner better than later. Now let's assume I'm a contaminant. What could you do with me? I'm volatile. I can be airborne. What would you do with me? Come on. And I'm approaching you. There's no hiding. Well, you know, I saw the lady, you know, close down that room. So obviously you're going to be with me for 30 hours. You might as well find out a way to decontaminate, right? What could you do?
Increase some barrier.
Yeah, prevent me from getting there. But how? How would you do that?
In physical barrier.
Yeah, use a barrier. Very good. Barrier, blockade. Okay, that's what we would actually call for industrial. I'm an industrial hygienist by training. Okay? That's what we would call isolation. Okay. For example, I was presenting at the Central Taiwan Science Park just yesterday. You know, you can see they have an automated system in the production line, in the manufacturing line. That's how you do it. You isolate any potential hazards from the person handling it. Could it be done? Yeah, sure. You know, you use an entirely isolated system. If you need manual operation, the person actually just put their hands into a little box. That's one good way of handling it. All right? What other approach you can use? Oh, come on. No, you can't shoot me. That's not a solution. You could remove me from the source of contamination. Since I'm moving around here, right? That's what you would do. Think about it. I'm volatile. I can get airborne. How about we have a ventilation system here? Okay? and specifically a local exhaust ventilation. That's what the term that I'm sure you hear about, LEV, right? I was talking about ventilation hood. If we have one of those pretty big suckers here, then it means I won't be able to dissipate, to disperse and approach. Now these are good strategies, and we prefer them. Why is that? See, you're trying to control the contamination at the source. But you see, if I'm moving into the crowd, that hard, what could you do? Well, I'm away from ventilation, and I'm narrowing down the distance between us. You need to understand that then the risk increases. What could you do? Well, see, when I'm standing here, who suffers the most? But the question is, for example, when you're working in a facility, manufacturing line, or even in this classroom, do they always have to be sitting in the front row in close proximity to the contaminant? They don't, right? So that's one trick we always do in the workplace. We have people sitting in rotation. Yep, that means, the next hour, the final row, the back row people is going to be here. Okay? Then we push them gradually to the rear end. All right? That's what we do. That's called administrative control. Whereas this guy, this is your last line of defense. You're probably thinking, oh, great. I love it. Well, I'm going to try it out. I'm not going to put my fate in anybody's hands. So I'm going to use protection myself, and I'm going to, this makes me feel safer. But you have to think about it. For any contaminants, if I'm a contaminant, for example, right now, you're using a ventilation system on me. If it doesn't work, we still have a distance. When I approach you, well, except for the four of them, the rest of you are relatively safer, right? You can still have time to escape, to evacuate. But what if I get into your mask? I got nowhere else to go except in your lungs, okay? That is why when you are looking at PPE, this is typically what we would refer to at NIOSH, we refer to as the last line of defense. You use it at an elevated risk, okay? I want you to take this message home. You shouldn't easily resort to PPE, but, nonetheless, usually that's a personal strategy of protection, all right? And I'm going to show you a little bit on how to select, use, maintain, and store PPE. All right, what's so unique about your laboratory? Think about it. What's so unique about your laboratory? Now, how many of you are here for a master's degree? Master degree, all right? What about the others? The others? We got PhD degrees here? Okay, wow. So, good. So you guys are hanging there, okay? You guys are going to learn a lot of tricks about laboratory management, okay? But for example, if you're working for, if you're here on this campus working for a master's degree, what's your expectation on how long you're going to stay here? Well, normally for our domestic students, check with your local guy or your colleagues, Taiwanese colleagues. They're going to tell you. If you're asking them, are you going to spend more than 2 years? They probably will give you a phone call. Okay? Well, that's the case in Taiwan. Mostly, well, when you enter a master's program, if everything goes well, you are expected, or you're expecting to complete a degree in 2. All right, let's say 3. Doesn't matter. In that 2 to 3 years, you have to take classes. You have to sit here, spend 3 hours of life this afternoon with me, right? And you have to attend courses, and not to mention, in the end, you have to write a thesis. Then think about it. How much time are you going to spend in the laboratory? Actually put your hands on laboratory work. Short. Okay? It's so short, as it turns out, you know, the very first year, you probably are just a new guy in the laboratory, waiting for instructions, letting people tell you what to do. And the next year, you know, next August, next September, when you have new students joining your lab, you become a manager, right? Or you don't expect your PI to teach those new kids, right? And you, as the headmaster, you will have to tell them, you know, what's going on in the laboratory. Hey, don't do this. This is how we do things. Or you want biochemical, this is the form to fill. Okay, right? Okay. Well, by the way, if you don't know, well, if those procurement forms, you know what I'm talking about, chemical purchase form. Two things we're working on the Taiwanese campus that you haven't noticed. When it comes to waste disposal and chemical procurement, chemical purchase, be very careful. Now, don't be shy. If there are any forms that's not in Chinese and you cannot fully interpret it, have someone in the lab to show you how to do it. Or talk to the EHS office here, environmental health and safety. It's their responsibility to make sure. Don't forget, you need to give your signature, okay? So that means you're going to be held responsible. If anything, for example, they're going to be asking you, you know, what's the volume you want to purchase. And our requirement is, if you're just buying a small amount, they probably would just tell you to shop around on campus. You can find out someone probably have access chemical you could use. But then if you want to buy in bulk quantity, you want to buy a large quantity, you're going to need many stamps and signatures to pass through that information. Okay? So what I'm saying, don't get scared. It's not that difficult. But just make sure you understand those forms. If it's you know, if it's in Chinese, have someone to help you. After all, you know, the next person to sign after you is your boss, not PI. Okay? All right. That's one thing. You know, we have a pretty frequent entry of personnel, changing personnel by rotation, or entry of new employees at a significant level. I don't know how many people in your lab are sharing the space. You know, for example, well, I don't do wet chemistry anymore. Okay, I'm doing in a way human subjects. Okay, no, I don't do invasive sampling, so don't worry. We try to see the heat stress, the heat strain response of people when they're exposed to slightly discomforting situations. For example, when it gets too hot, too cold, too humid, okay, or when they're exposed to the solar radiation for 3 hours, you know, so on and so forth, what's going to happen. And even in that case, we have about 6 to 8 people working at the same time. So naturally, when they come back to the laboratory, when they work in the laboratory, they fight for space. Is that the case for you? If you think about it, you know. The other thing is, you have too many unknowns. Now, if you're here working for a degree, you want to write a thesis. A thesis requires what? Originality. So you're always trying something. That's the fun of doing research. But when it comes to, that's a nightmare. Because there is no fixed SOP, standard operating procedure or protocol you could follow, okay? You're probably thinking, now, you know, I've seen tons of codes and practice, standards, protocols in the laboratory. Yeah, think about it, who wrote them? The person writing that protocol, well, now being graduated, right? Probably was working on a project very different from the one you're handling. So that person couldn't have anticipated all the risks that would be involved in your project. So you have to think about it, you know. These are the unknowns you have to handle in your laboratory. Not to mention, you have a pretty good high density of technology and equipment. Okay? If you're working, you know, we have a hospital in Taichung. The university has a hospital. Just like, you know, National Chen-Peng University also has a hospital. Boy, you go into their laboratories, you're going to be in real shock. There's equipment, apparatus everywhere. Okay? You probably will even have a hard time maneuvering your way around, finding your way out, okay, or in. So all those unknowns, new technology, or, for example, you could be trying to define a new mechanism using new chemical, okay, or try a new method, developing new method. And inevitably, when you're trying new things, you are generating unknowns. And when it comes to occupational safety and health, you know, you're not going to like it. Way too many things you cannot control. All right? So this is just the risk pyramid. You probably have seen this 1,000 times. I wouldn't mind actually seeing them again because I want to remind you. This is what you should do. Okay? You're sharing space with people, so be observant. I don't mean to spy on people, but it concerns your safety. So it's your responsibility as well. If people are doing, people are handling their experiments in a way that could risk your safety. Okay? Way too many times we have seen false alarms keep coming up, and it was poor management. Nobody wants to talk about it, to stop it. Okay? They're probably thinking, have you found out that part about your domestic colleagues? Now normally, you know, they're always smiling, friendly. But then when it comes to a lab meeting, you see, most people are pretty quiet, right? And it's in our custom, in our culture, we don't like to point fingers at each other. Okay? You know what that's called in Taiwanese? Peak face. That the idea literally means it means everybody has a mask on all the time. You don't want to break it unless you have to. When do you have to? This is when you have to. Okay? If you're seeing a protocol of practice, you know, a bad approach has been practiced way too often in the laboratory. That's what you want to do. You want to voice up, you want to tell them, you have to stop. Okay? Because you keep doing this is going to hurt me as well. For example, I don't know how many of you handling autoclaves for sterilization. Okay? You know, when you do autoclaving, you have to wait for the cycle to complete, to depressurize, right? But you see, the problem is, I know that waiting sometimes can be annoying. Come on, you know, someone's waiting for me. I got 50 minutes. Come on, complete. Let it run its course, okay? Don't force it. I'm not joking about this because last year at our university, we had a graduate student who didn't wait for the cycle to complete. He thought the vehicle has been depressurized, but in fact, it wasn't. So he turned it up, he unlit it, he got burned. Okay? They had to send him to a hospital and remove his pants piece by piece. They had to cut it open first because you know, it was pretty messy over there. Okay? All those things you have to be very careful. Now, I'm going to put this presentation into 5 sections, okay? Although I did spend a lot of time, just until now, talking about the general concepts in laboratory safety and health. Then specifically, section 1, I will tell you chemical hazards and how you deal with them. And pointers on management of chemical hazards. And section 3, that's going to be PPE, all right? If you can't promise to concentrate on 3 hours, that's okay. This is the part that you want to stay away, okay? It's fun, a lot of fun. Respirators, yeah, the best part of the presentation. And the 5th section will be protective clothing and hand protection. Now, normally when we are introducing PPE, I would cover 9 different types of equipment, okay? But since you're working in laboratory, I'm going to cover only respirator and protective clothing. By clothing, I mean to include your gloves, all right? What's the color of the gloves that you're using? Are you guys using gloves? Okay, what color? Green, raise your hand. Blue, nitrile, that's nitrile gloves, right? Why do you use nitrile gloves? Tell me. I don't know, it was there. My boss, my PI bought it, you know, and I think it's pretty cheap. Yeah, it is. It's not costly as PVC gloves, okay? If you don't know what's PVC gloves, some gloves are less flexible, not less tactile. When you're using them, you can't do pipetting, pushing syringe, okay? You can't do those because they're pretty hard. Butyl glove, for example, you put it on the desk, it's going to stand up, okay? Are they protective? Yes, very, but can you use them? No, okay? That's why you guys always use nitrile glove. No, I'm going to talk a bit more on that, but nitrile glove is a pretty good choice. It has an adequate capability to stop the permeation of chemical across the glove membrane. Okay, yet at the same time, it gives you the flexibility you need to maneuver your fingers in the glove. Okay? Milky White. Okay, you guys are dealing with either blood or microbes, right? Okay, well, those gloves are pretty good. That's even better, and it's well ventilated, so you don't sweat a lot when you're wearing those gloves. Okay. I know those things, okay? I've been playing with them all my life, so. But be very careful. They are very effective to stop the permeation of large molecules. If you're pathogenic, okay? Pathogens, microorganisms, bacteria, 0.22 micrometer bacteria. That's pretty much the lower limit. But if by any chance you're also playing with, you're experimenting, handling organic solvents, you want to put on a different layer of nitrile at least, okay? Nitrile is cheap, you know, it's 1 NT, Taiwanese dollar, $1 per glove, okay? So that's another thing you need to keep in mind. Please, when you're done using gloves, you know, after you take them down, you're supposed to recycle them, throw them away. You are not supposed to rinse it, put it in your foot, wait for the next morning to reuse it. No, you don't want to do that, trust me. Let me tell you why. After you use it, doesn't matter how, you know, how originally, you know, flexible it is. After you're sweating, okay? Well, when you're cleaning, you only clean outside. The sweating, that part you can't help. And what's going to happen? When you put it, you have to dry it out, right? And then that's the process we call weathering. Weathering of gloves, okay? And have you ever thought about it? If the chemical is able to get into the glove, but not yet completely traverse across the membrane, what's going to happen? It's in the glove. You can't clean it up. You can't decontaminate it. The only good way to decontaminate it is thermal destruction. You heat it up, okay? But when you heat it up, you open up all the pore space on the membrane. So tomorrow morning when you put on the gloves, you know, with some warmth from your palms, that chemical will break through. That's the term that we use. Break through or reach inside the glove. That's your skin, okay? That could happen in less than an hour. So please, when it's done, it's done, okay? And certainly you know, you don't use nitrile glove. Well, in case you didn't use a nitrile glove before, this is what they are famous for. You make a broom out of them. You can use hydrogen gas, okay? All right. Chemical hazards. What are the hazards? Any source of potential damage on or health effect or on something or someone under certain conditions. What do I mean? Well, you know, when it gets too hot in the room, you're not happy. But is it really harmful? Okay, well, you say, I'm not happy, so it's harmful. It's psychologically harmful. Well, okay, then let's back down a little bit. How about the temperature here right now? That's not harmful, is it? So many environmental factors are present a harmful effect only when it's in the extreme condition. Temperature is such a case. And then, for example, we also have chemical effect, you know, chemical that exerting effect on health. Okay? When you're exposed to it in excess quantity or duration, that could happen. Now, a hazard can cause harm or adverse effect to individuals as health effect. Or, for example, if this is an explosive, it's a fire hazard, why don't you just look inside? Come in. We could use more people. Oh, that one, okay? For example, if it's a chemical have significant explosion potential or fire potential, you know, that could present a damage to organization, property, or equipment loss. Okay? So we're looking at two things here. Injury or harmful effect to humans, as well as what? Damaging to the property or equipment. Now, typically, when it comes to laboratory safety and health, we divide those into 5 different categories. Okay? Chemical, physical, biological, ergonomic, and safety hazards. Yes, ergonomics hazards are typically considered as a significant factor in the laboratory. I'm pretty sure you have no beef with the seats right now, okay? But you know, my students in the laboratory, they always have issues. You know, I don't want this chip. I don't want this. This is a fixed height. It doesn't work that well. Or, for example, I was giving you the example. I was telling you the story about how people use my pen. You know, when they lean forward to get closer. Or, is that the best way you can do it? Okay. What if? You know, let's put in another story here. What if you have to entering data at the same time, do data logging? Okay. What would be a more convenient way for you to do it? Okay. Or back to life. You guys are using a cell phone or a smartphone. Now tell me, is that panel too small or too big for you? Probably wouldn't be too big, right? Is it too small? Can you read the phone? Yeah, you could. See, at my age, I can't read small fonts. Okay, that's way too difficult. Well, that's fine. You guys probably see I was using iPad, right? I don't use a smartphone. In case you wonder. Oh, wait a minute. I was still using those conventional. Yeah, it's antique. I know. I'm waiting for the chance to sell it. You know, I'm gonna make a fortune out of it. Ergonomics, okay. Ergon, that means work, and safety hazards. Okay. I will introduce them as we move along. What's a chemical hazard? Chemical hazards, they could present toxicity. That's the harmful effect. For example, poisoning, or if you have something, you have a splash of chemical organic solvent on the skin that could present to you the observation. Or to say the least, you could have some skin irritation, dermatosis. Some example. Well, clinically, you will be able to see erythema, red. Sometimes you feel, well, it's sweating up. Yeah, it is. So that's called erythema. Hazard, the damage caused by chemical because of energy released from chemical reaction. For example, fires and explosion. All right? What you do with those chemicals. I want you to have the right image in your mind. When we are talking about chemical hazards, we're not necessarily talking about gases contaminants. Okay, you're thinking about I use those organic compounds in liquid state, okay, powders, okay, any type of thing could be a chemical hazard. But in the laboratory, you should be concerned with airborne hazards. And specifically, we're talking about particulates, particles that has a diameter in the micro to nanometer range. Okay? The reason we do this is, depending on the size and its physical state, that's going to change and affect your selection of PPE. Right? That's going to affect what type of PPE you want to use. So it doesn't matter. It could be a conventional mineral dust, okay? But it could also be a mist. As I said, you're using new pipetting, you're generating those liquid aerosols, but they're pretty light, okay? And they're pretty small. They're going to span in the air. Now that's a rule of thumb. Usually we use protection. If you have reasons to believe that particles is going to be suspended in the air for longer than 50 minutes. Okay? That's what you want to do. Fume, metal fume, okay? Some people tell me they can see fume. No, you can't. They say, yeah, I can. It's blackish. Okay? It looks like black particles. What you're looking at is the aggregates of fume particles. Fume particles are pretty small. It's usually 1/10 of the diameter of a dust particle. Okay, so it's pretty small. Bioaerosols, now, if you're working in biological laboratories, this is a real hassle. This is the thing you want to look out. Okay? Because, you see, for dust, this is typical a solid, liquid, whereas bioaerosols are a big mixture. In the pore, it could be a solid particle. But since it's called bioaerosol, you get the drift, right? You get the drift. Usually, it has a coating of microorganisms on the surface in liquid. So you got everything mixed up there, okay? That's what makes a bioaerosol scary, all right? And on the other side of the spectrum, you have gases and vapor contaminants, all right? So later on, I'm going to tell you, well, these are very small molecules, right? You guys are more like liquid. You're not like gas. You didn't disperse out far enough from each other. You know how those molecules line up, right? For solids, it's unmoving. So molecules stay connected to each other. You guys are liquid. Somewhat, having a distance in between, but not all that far away. If you're completely dispersed out, it becomes a gas molecule. The airborne hazards can be in the form of solid, liquid, or gas vapors. I covered this part already. If it's a dust, usually it has a size greater than 5 micrometer, whereas for fume, the size usually is 0.5 or even less. Okay? The example would include tin manganese fume generated from welding work. You probably are thinking, I don't do welding work in the laboratory. Well, anything involves heating process. You'll be able to see that. Okay? Then here comes bioaerosols. Okay? These are dust. a mineral or even mist receiving great attention because they're biological. That means they also have coating of bacteria, viruses, or fungi on the surface. Now some bioaerosols, they can get into your airway and reach your alveoli. Okay, they can get deep inside your lung. Liquid particles, some examples, for example, well, mist that are developed from droplets of lubricating oil when you do myocardium, or when you do pipetting. That was the other example I was giving you. If the original solution is acidic, then we refer to them as acidic mist, such as sulfuric acid mist and chronic acid mist. Now, you don't get to see this too much unless you are involving redox potential experiments handling redox reduction and oxidation. Okay? If you're playing around with redox potential, you use that. Otherwise, acidic mist. Okay? Acidic mix is not a simple task to handle. Okay? Gas molecules, they have a tendency to diffuse and evenly occupy the space. Some examples would include carbon dioxide, ethane, carbon monoxide, you name it. See, these are pretty small molecules. Okay? Vapors. Now, vapor is a different story. You all know this, right? They are usually under STP conditions, standard temperature, room temperature, 1 atmosphere. These are liquid. Okay? But you provide some heat, you furnish some heat, then they could be, then the process of sublimation could happen. Okay? Then they turn from solid to the gaseous form. They otherwise under normal conditions, they're just liquid and solids. Examples could include organic solvent that you use in paints. Some of these actually, I'm pretty sure you have handled them before. Benzene, okay? Now that's the other thing you need to know. I kept mentioning organic solvents because they can transform between physical states, okay? And when they remain as a gaseous container, they go deep inside your body. This is what happens. And normal hexane, some of you must be handling normal hexane. It's such a great solvent. Everybody uses, right? In chemical laboratory. But the problem is, or the question we should take home and think about is, how do you handle it? How do you take it out? What do you mean take it out? You just unlid it. Remove the cap and pour it out. Yeah. You'll be amazed. You'll be surprised if you get a chance to see those microscopic image of the aerosols. So, do me a favor. Next time, handle them in ventilation port. Okay? But if you're handling microorganisms, microbiological samples, please don't do that in ventilation port. You want to use a biosafety cabinet. They are different. You could tell. Okay? Ventilation hood has a, biosafety cabinet is more delicate, smaller. It has a better, the reason they're different is they use different filters of different size. Okay? You handle microorganisms in the ventilation hole, you're blocking that filter really quick. And you're going to end up, changing those filters. Like every week, maybe. You don't want to do that. That's a really hassle. And you could tell, many of the filters, if you get a chance to open up that hood, you're going to see, if you're working with microorganisms, they actually colonies on the filter. Colonies. So real messy in different colors and shapes. You don't want that to happen. Because, let me tell you, during the daytime, when you have the ventilation hood on, it's sucking the air straight out, right? But inevitably, your room actually, when it's in operation, your room is going to be negatively pressure. So the very first thing when you turn it off, the some of the air is going to flow back in, bringing those microorganisms. Okay? That's the reason why you don't want to use ventilation fluid to handle your biosamples. All right, and some of this, for example, carbon tetrachloride, this is actually confirmed nitrogen, confirmed carcinogens. I'm giving you a story here. This story happened in a university laboratory located in Taipei. Okay, that's as far as I can tell you. A glass container carrying 4 liters of normal hexane. I'm talking about those amber, very thick wall bottle. Okay. For example, you're buying chemical from Fisher. Those are the standard bottles. Now this thing got ruptured. Now don't ask me. I don't have the information on how it was ruptured. Okay? What we did know was, because it was ruptured, so, you know, normal hexane evaporated, okay? And it was there for a while. And then the student, this poor kid, you know, he found out, okay, well, you know, obviously something was out. There was a flood, a pool of the liquid on the floor, and you could smell it. And he didn't call for help. He just tried to knock it off itself. But in the meantime, the experiment, you know, the laboratory has a purpose. He was using, you know, he was mopping off real diligently in a way, you know, he tried to make the problem go away before his boss finds out. And this is what happened. He got in control with the temperature control, okay? Then there was a fire, lasting 2.5 hours. Most of the laboratory equipment were destroyed, and with the loss of 10 million TD, Taiwanese dollars. And the worst part was, because it was a very severe negligence. So the PA, the boss, was revoked license for operating the laboratory. That means everybody inside the lab, okay? They can't work there. I don't know what's the sequel of that story, but that was bad. The license was revoked for 3 years. Now let me tell you a magic number, okay? Meaning punishment. Penalty in Taiwan goes by the number 3. So you're going to see that number comes up a lot, okay? You do hazard evaluation. This is a process to decide the type of hazard and the severity of hazard based on your work process, your laboratory process, and the equipment material that you use. Now, another thing that you should be able to notice right now, in the corridor, now if your laboratory is in a block of the research area somewhere occupying the entire floor, it's not hard to find this safety data sheet. What are they? They tell you, for example, if this is a laboratory, we're using 10 different chemicals, then for each one of them, you're going to find an individual SDS. You stick them together, put it by the entrance. That's a requirement. That's a legal requirement. Okay? But it depends. Sometimes they actually put that inside. But you know, when I do campus inspection, that's what we do. That's the very first thing I always check, and I was asking them, you know, where's your SDS? Sometimes I get the answer, it's in my computer. I will give them a ticket, okay? It is a legal requirement. The requirement says it has to be posted on the visible location. Well, think about it. If you get a fire, would you be able to open up your file and retrieve that information? Unlikely, right? So it has to be somewhere you can see. Now, today, after the presentation, we'll go back to your home department. Spend some time. You don't know your environment a little bit, okay? It's the place, well, suffice to say, for at least the next 2 years, you're going to spend a great proportion portion of your time in. So you want to know that environment. But I would even say you should know those safety cabinet, sitting quietly by the corner. Normally nobody would actually spend any minute there. They have a lot of goodies. For example, respirators, protective clothing, and in case you have a chemical spill in the laboratory, you can find the absorbent there. Okay? Even flashlight. Well, I know you guys are always using a cell phone. But what about if you're running on a battery? That's a good source. All right? SES, they would show you for individual chemicals the physical chemical characteristics of the substance. For example, their physical state, corrosivity, volatility, or even how lipid soluble they are, lipopolicity, as well as its toxicity. All right, I'm going to let you guys up for 10 minutes to stretch your leg. Okay, and I will collect you back on number 2. So what would you do after you find out if a chemical is a real hazard in presence and it's threatening something? Now there are several things you could do. See, remember that little uncontaminated that I played with you? Engineering control. This is a priority choice. If means are available, you have the resources, then certainly this is the best choice you can go with. Okay? Engineering control in its very concept is, for example, using substitution. Could you replace those toxic chemicals with those of lower toxicity? Is that possible? Can you do that? Or if you can't, then can you reduce? Can you experiment with less amount? Okay. Well, if your resolution requires, I know usually, you do more than triplicates of better, but then the thing is it necessary? Or do you really have to use, well, if your visibility, your resolution, you could do fairly well in terms of accuracy as well as precision. With only 1 microliter, do you really have to use 1 milliliter? Okay. That doesn't make sense. Isolation, remember we were saying isolation, separating lab workers not directly involved in handling those equipments or process, separated from it. Okay? They have no business there, they shouldn't be there. It's by the same very principle. You go see a doctor, you go see a dentist in Taiwan, the very first thing they're going to take X-ray. Okay? You don't have, whoever is accompanying you is not supposed to get into the X-ray, right? Ventilation, LEV, or general ventilation. LEV means you're using mechanical ventilation, whereas dilute ventilation, general ventilation, typically what you do is opening up those windows, doors, and you encourage the convection of air flow. Okay, that's what you do. Administrative control, your second choice, second best choice. Okay, education training. You see, that's why you're here today. Okay, that's what we do. I'm trying to put those ideas in your mind. For example, I was telling you, when you're handling microbiological samples, you don't want to do that in the ventilator report. Come to think about it. See, many things I have gone through, I have discussed with you. Don't you feel those are things you already know? Okay? But you see, it's way too often when it comes to safety and health concerns and issues, we just go for it. Okay? We don't want to make people feel bad. It's really no big deal, so just go for it. No, you shouldn't. Okay? Over time, it will emerge as a new and bigger issue. PBEs, now these are not alternative to engineering and administrative controls, okay? They're the last line of defense. Although there are 9 different classes, but the emphasis has always been on respirators and protective clothing. All right? So section 2, I'm going to give you some pointers on some common mistakes we have been observing, we've been seeing for people working in the laboratory for management of chemical processes. Now, here's the thing. Remember I was telling you, you should try to check out. That's what you want to do. That's absolutely the right thing to do. You want to check out with your PI, your lab management, or even your colleagues. Hey, how you guys do things around here? Why do you do it this way? Now, this is my experience. Don't be quick to judge or to deny. What I meant is, for example, you're seeing people do things in a very tedious way. Why do you make it 3 steps when I can think of a single step to complete the task? You see, they're not done. Sometimes they do it in separate ways, in a repeated manner, in a repetitive way for a reason, okay? And that reason mostly is research, okay? So make sure you talk to people, you learn the process safe laboratory practice, okay? And I don't mean a book. Sometimes it's just experiences passing down early. Okay? Now, I'll give you another example. You know, you've been handling a pretty crappy old machine. And I remember I had an Occupational walker. You know what that thing is? It's a shaker that makes our samples. Now you're supposed to put the samples in, leave it, you know, shaking overnight, so tomorrow morning when you come back, I was doing soda sampling. So I have to do extraction. And you can't use strong organic salt. So it's happening. Water and salt. Supposedly the next morning when I come back, you know, everything will be done. You know, I can start my analysis. Fraction is done. Then all I have to do is concentration and concentrating the samples and put it on the GC analysis. You know what happened? Nobody told me until it happened. Okay, nobody told me that shaker would walk. That's why we call it a walker. Because it kept shaking and it was unbalanced. As it unbalanced, they tend to slide away. And you probably think it was nothing wrong with that, right? You know, it just walks. Still, tomorrow morning when it comes back, you know, it's still walking. And when it walks to the edge, by itself, it's actually pulling off the block. Then it died out there. Kaput. Okay. So it was a pretty bad thing. Then I learned the lesson. Well, you know, actually, there were some clues on the machine, on the walker, on the shaker. So this is Arbitron shaker. So this is an Arbitron shaker. So it orbits. Okay, it orbits. It moves around. I didn't notice that part. But that's what happened. You talk to people when you get into the laboratory. Okay, you learn what they know. Sometimes it's very effective. Just talk to them. Okay. Well, in addition to being a tour guide, they can offer you skill experiences and information. And you want to learn, you want to know those equipment apparatus as well as the protocol that you use in the experiment. Okay. Now remember I was telling you the strategies of prevention and control would vary depending on what kind of looking in. So I'm going to show you something common to most laboratories. SDS, safety data sheet. Okay, I'm going to move across this area quickly because I already told you. SDS, they are required for display laboratory handling chemical. Okay, they should be displayed at visible locations of easy access. Now, SDS formerly was named Material Safety Machines. Okay. Back then, you know, mostly we were looking at chemicals. But nowadays, we also share an emphasis on biological agents as well as physical agents. So we're changing the title. We take away the material. But if you have an older version of an SDS and you are looking at chemical, that's fine. You know, they haven't changed. The information they provide will still be the same. Okay, it's just a title change. Now, What information is there? Well, you know, they give you a lot of goodies. First aid measures. You had an accidental spill and someone get hurt. What should you do? Firefighting measures. You have an accidental spill, once again, in large quantity and with the potential of catching on fire. What should you do? Accidental release measure. This is spill section. Okay? And exposure control, personal protection. You could actually buy, for example, for fire extinguishers, you don't just use water. Some chemicals are incompatible with water. What would you do? Okay? Do you use a, for example, CO2-based extinguisher? But for chemicals, a lot of them, the CO2, you know, those CO2 foams wouldn't work. Okay? So you probably will have to resort to Class D extinguisher. Now those information are here. You can find them here. So it's required. The updated record should be on the file for 3 years. Okay? See, remember I told you that magic number 3. We do like that number for a lot of different things here. Now, this is a typical GHS display for benzene containing elements required for labeling. Now, remember I was telling you, if you have a waste container or you have a bottle, you transfer your original liquid. Now, mind you, if you have the original bottle, the packaging usually is well labeled. But if you transfer, for example, normal hexane into different bottles for displacement, okay? What you want to do is make a copy of the original label. That's the easiest way, hassle-free. Just take it, okay? Take it onto the new container. That will make your nightmare go away, okay? Otherwise, if you want to experience handwriting, this is what information should be included in the label. Okay, it is labeled in accordance with GHS, globally harmonized system for classification and labeling of chemical. Now, what you want to have is a hazard symbol on it. Okay, what's a hazard symbol? Such as this one. It's obvious, right? Evident. This is a fire hazard, okay? This is a through inhalation. It will cause health effect. And this one typically is for, well, let's see, PPC, eye irritation, skin irritation, or tissue ulceration. That's what you get, okay? You need to know that these symbols, actually they're called pictograms. They're initially designed for international transportation of dangerous goods. Okay? And then we transplanted that system into GHS. What else is included here? Chemical name, signal word. It's a 2-tier system. It's either danger or caution. See? They're trying to transforming quantitative risk data information into a link. Right? Into a ranking system. It's easier for people to comprehend the risk that way. Hazard statement has a warning message, okay? And precautionary statement, okay? I don't know if you're able to see those tiny fonts, okay? Well, I'll give you one example. P210, now here is the hazard statement. Let's go get H3340 may cause genetic effects. It means after repeated exposure, this type of chronic effect, genetic toxicity may appear, okay, may develop. And precautionary, this is what, in terms of safe handling and storage, what could you do? Oh, let's grab another one. P210, okay? Keep away from heat, spark, open flames, hot surface. Is it useful? I would think it's useful. If you don't know much about this chemical to start with, it would be a good starting point to learn. All right? Precautionary statements also include prevention, response, storage, and disposal. Okay? Talking about storage, okay? If you're handling hazardous material, Now, they should be stored in accordance with its, for example, volatility. Is it volatile, flammable, or compatible with other compounds? Okay? Now, most of the time, remember, for example, I was talking about that big amber jar, 4-liter jar, right? You probably get the idea, well, they are, you know, they look pretty nice. That should be sufficient in terms of protection. You don't want to play with that because sometimes, depending on where you put them, if you don't lock up the room, something odd's always happen. You know, somebody, you're next door, the neighbor, they're running short on normal exit. They take it away and use it. But keep this in mind. If it's in your lab, it's your responsibility. That's the law. Okay? So it's better if it's any chemical that has a fire explosion capability, lock it up. Okay? Use a safety cabinet. It's not really that expensive. I'm pretty sure a lot of laboratories have this kind of equipment. Or if you don't, keep it well ventilated. Okay? And you should find a room that you can lock up at night. Okay? Well, I'm stressing on this part because a lot of time people don't find it necessary. They find it actually kind of annoying. You lock it up, you know, someone later come and want to get in. They couldn't get in, they have to call it out, so on and so forth. But it really isn't that much of a hassle. You see, if that person works in the laboratory and has a sufficient clearance, shouldn't that person also have a key? Right? And, you know, if that person really doesn't have a key and want to get into the laboratory after hours, shouldn't someone know about that? Okay? So that's what you want to do. The exhaust ventilation system in the storage facility, they should be periodically inspected and maintained. Okay? For example, ventilation hood, I was telling you, if you're hearing something odd, noisy, yeah, it's time to check it out. Okay, have someone, mechanic, to fix something. Facilities, storing a significant level of volatile, flammable liquid, they should be installed with flammable gas detectors. Now this is what they look like. For example, for hydrogen cylinders, you see, you could still use a hydrogen detector. The way it works is you set up the boundary values, the lower, higher limits, okay? And then when those limits are reached, it's going to sound alarming. Now, this is what you don't want to do. Some laboratories will manipulate with the number here. They're thinking, you know, we always get those false alarms. Let's keep it low, okay? Or let's adjust the number. Let's push the number a little higher so it wouldn't sound easily bad idea. Okay? And you need to know this. Once you start manipulating the number, the contract or the safety warrant offered by the device is void. Because you change it, that's not allowed. Okay? Ventilation board, okay, that's what it looks like. You're all familiar with it. And look, this is LED. It could be just big cup, sucking away. For example, you're using gas chromatograph at the output port, okay, emission port. You should always use a ventilation LED to cover it, okay, to drive away, to remove the emitted source, the emitted gas. Ventilation chemical, that's where you want to handle them. For microorganisms of airborne capability, as I told you, they should be processed and handled in a safety cabinet. Now, they're not the same thing. They as I explained, they function differently, okay? And they serve different purposes, so don't mix use them. Now, the other thing you want to see how clean this ventilation cord is. Normally, it wouldn't appear this way.
but this is what it should be. Okay? Now, I know it's like personal garden, you know, people like to put in their chemicals, bottles, everything like that, looking real nice, make yourself happy. But you need to know this. When you put your tools, samples in there, now let's talk about sample first. What's going to happen? It's going to be sucked dry. Okay? You're effectively changing the concentration of your sample. Number two reason why you shouldn't do that. When you have a large mass of materials inside the ventilation hood, it's going to slow down the suction rate, okay? The transport velocity. You don't want that. So don't leave your stuff in there. I know sometimes it's difficult because you're thinking, what? Are you telling me, you know, I have to move everything out tonight and put them back in once again tomorrow morning? At least remove those large massive materials. Okay? That's what you could do. Toxins, they may be released from scientific equipment during operation. Point of gas emission should be covered. LEV, ventilation hood, and this type of equipment, they are required to be annually checked for transport velocity. And if you're seeing anything funny, you know, hearing strange sound noise, stop. Have someone to check and maintain it. Okay? Certainly, we can see a damage in the pipeline. You know, you should stop. Okay? Yeah, look this part. Gas cylinder. I do not know how, if you have a chance or you in your line of work, in your laboratory, you need to use gas cylinders. Don't do this. It's a range, right? Why do you put it up there? You turn it up, okay? Once you're done, turn it on, please remove it. Let me tell you why. People leave it on there because they think at the end of the day, see? Oh, it's easier, just shut it off once again. But between your opening and the time you reshut the valve, if it's on there, it's also human habit. When someone walks by, that thing is so funny. They do that, trust me. Especially, see, for example, I'm teaching now back in the United States, also spent a few years teaching. Kids always do this. You can't blame them, okay? They're pretty happy. They're touring around the laboratory, or they have a class schedule there. At the end of the day, when they're leaving, they're so happy. They just subconsciously feel they have to do that, okay? So it's better you remove it. You don't leave it there. Now that's another thing here. If you want to use a belt, please, this is not the way to do it. You want to tighten it up. Okay? Make sure you do it the right way. Okay? Gauge pressures, are they normal? You know, how would you know? You can read the numbers if it's a pretty quick drop. You got a problem, likely you have a leak. Okay? Where could be the leak? Is it the connection, the regulator? Okay, the belt connection? Put on some soapy water. You see those bubbles coming out. Okay, you would know. What else should you know here? Constituents of the gas. Are they clearly labeled? You're probably thinking, what? That thing has to be labeled too. Yeah. And it's for your own goodness. Do you know why? You do know that. For example, if this is 2500 psi, when it drops to, while you keep using it, so inside the tank, inside the cylinder, it depressurized, right? And then, as it's depressurized, all the impurities down at the bottom is going to surface. So it's typical if you have experience with this. you don't use the less juice. Okay? For example, if you still have 200 to 400 psi, and I was luxurious, I don't use this cylinder anymore once the pressure drops below 400 psi. I just don't want to use it because that's introducing purity. So this is why, labeling the cylinder is a good practice for everybody. Okay? Your storage room, it cannot go beyond 40 degrees. It's a very. For most of you, when did you get to Taiwan? In hot summertime, please. Wait. You just got it here? Okay, well, lucky you. Lucky for you. We had a pretty scorching summer this year. Okay? What I'm getting at is, right now, it's pretty cool and cozy in this room. Wait until next summer. Okay? In case of outage, electricity outage, that's the very first thing you have to do. Make sure this room, the temperature doesn't go up in degrees. Okay, it's risky. Remember, these are pressurized vessels. Okay? Containers, toxic chemical substances, TCS containers. The containers and packaging of these TCS, they should be so labeled and they should be attached with a copy of SDS. Alright? And the entrance, remember I was telling you, the entrance of the chemical should be attached with the SDS. Also, they should be so labeled with this sign here. Okay, that's a premise, handling toxic chemical. That's a facility handling toxic chemical. And when you're working there, you should make sure you have the mechanisms preventing release or leakage of toxic chemicals standing by. Okay, turn it on. Even if you're not working in the ventilation work, but you're handling your samples, turn it on. Okay, that would help to recirculate, recirculate the air in the room. All right, that's always a good idea. And as I said, the storage room, they should be locked up when no one is there. And emergency response equipment, all right, keep it activated. Okay? It always helps. Did you notice that although we have nice and cool ventilation, it seems warmer? You notice that part? That's not entirely due to a change in temperature. Even the CO2 concentration helps. Okay? How many of you are here today? 30 or even less? Okay? But this is a small room too. Okay? So they might have activated the ventilation, but still, right outside in the ambient air, the CO2 concentration, this is still considered an urban area. The CO2 concentration is typically 250 ppm. When you walked in here, this room, because it wasn't used this morning, so you have, I'm going to say you have a level 300, 400. Usually that's inside the, that's the CO2 concentration inside. By the second hour, we're halfway through, right? That's, you should get 500, 600. Okay? So by the third hour, you're going to feel very sleepy because the elevated CO2 concentration. It's not poisonous, in case you're wondering. It has to get to 5,000 ppm before you can feel anything. Okay? Right now, it's just flushing. You feel like, oh, well, it's everything. You just keep talking, so might as well take a nap. All right? The record of operation for TCS should remain on file for 3 years. Okay? Now, I'm going to end this section with this picture. Forget about the words. Tell me what's wrong with it. This is a waste container. Let me tell you. That's the good. What happened? Number one thing, where's the label? And what get me mad when I saw this one? See the trail here? How did you get this way? That means they didn't even bother using a funnel, okay? Or any transfer that's going to help to prevent leaking. Well, you can use a funnel when you pour the liquid in, but obviously that didn't happen, did it? See, they get a water trail here, liquid trail there, okay? And the third thing get me even madder was, when I took the photo, this one was empty. No one bothered to clean it. See, laboratory hygiene, that's always a problem. If you don't do things in a very organized manner, over time, you know, for example, in the case of this container, it gets pretty bad, in pretty bad shape, then nobody wants to ever put their hands on it again. Then it's going to stay this way for a long, long time. Okay, in the end, you know, it's hurting everybody. All right? Well, suffice to say, well, what you want to do is when you do the labeling, you want to label it correctly before you hand it over to the EHS office. Okay? Section 3, overview of PPE. Okay, this is the fun part. The fun begins. Now, normally for non-emergency use of PPE, we divide it into 9 different types. Either facial protection, for example, you're using safety glasses and face shields, respirators, okay, or you probably would just refer them to as masks, okay, gas mask, dust mask, it doesn't matter. But these are still for non-emergency use. I'm not going to talk about those for emergency use. For example, the level A ensemble. That's what we you should read it on the newspaper as hazmat suit. But we always call it monkey suit because it's pretty clumsy. Well, make no mistake, right underneath that layer of hazardous suit, you still have, you know, asbestos. You still have your self-carrying cylinders of pressurized oxygen or pressurized air. Did you guys see the news? You know that yesterday there was a CNN building. You know, someone supposedly sending them explosive materials. Okay. What I wanted you to check out is, in those locations, they always have people fully dressed up in emergency response equipment. I was licensed to use them when I worked for CDC because I got into CDC right after 9/11 event. So the very first thing they did was sending me to take the training. That was a, well, I'm no longer licensed. Okay, but at my age, that training was a disaster. Okay? But otherwise, you know, I know that's the standard procedure. They always have people fully dressed. The outside, you know, on the surface, it's safety suit or hazardous material suit. But they carry your own oxygen, pressurized oxygen there. You have another layer of asbestos for protection against any possible potential explosion or fire. You also need to have your SCBA self-contained breathing apparatus. Why? Because there's always the possibility of accidental release or intentional release of toxic gas. Okay, so it was a very heavy deal. Okay, but I didn't bring those with me. Just I'm not going to take those emergency response equipment onto Taiwan high-speed rail. I'm pretty sure you're going to see me on TV tonight if I do that, okay? Chemical protective clothing, well, for you guys, if you're working in laboratory, mostly that's just your lab coat and safety apron. Hand and foot protection, for example, you're using gloves and safety shoes and boots, okay? we'll talk more as we move along. Hearing protection, earplugs and earmuffs. You're probably thinking, what earmuff? Isn't it very warm in here? Yeah. But if you have tried using earplugs for over 30 minutes, I'm pretty sure most of you would agree earmuff is still a better, more enjoyable choice. Okay? Types of PPE for non-emergency use. Now, I stress on the parts for non-emergency use because I want you to know it's for your daily protection. Okay? Although I also told you earlier that it's the last line of defects, but make no mistake, it's still a defect. Okay? You don't go find a respirator only after an explosion. Those are emergency situations. You have to ask yourself, when you're working in the laboratory, well, you put samples, as I said, in the ventilation hood when you process and handle them. The question is, why would you do that? You are concerned, aren't you? Then the next question is, what if the ventilation hood fails? What's your strategy of exit? Okay? So oftentimes, you have to keep PPE nearby where you work. PPE that can protect you only when you use them. All right? Do me a favor. Remember I was telling you there was a safety cabinet usually available in the corridor. Okay, by the corner of the building, somewhere visible. Go find them. Okay? Go find it and check it out. What's inside the cabinet? There are usually respirators, chemical protective clothing, spill treatment, okay, a flashlight, and first aid kit. Okay, that's another favorite checking spot of mine when I go to campus inspection. I always go and say, "Can I see what's inside?" You know what I always check on? A flashlight. You're supposed to have batteries, right? I can't give you a ratio, but many of them are not. They don't have batteries. So I was asking them, well, I know why they didn't want batteries. It's going to drain, so by the time someone gets to use it, that's a problem. So I was asking them, why didn't you want to put batteries in? Well, it drains. It's a no-brainer. I said, well, what you could do is actually put the batteries in the cabinet, but separate from the flashlight. Well, think about it. When do you need to use a flashlight? Electricity outage, right? And a lot of that happens at night. Do you really expect someone at that hour can still find a supply of additional batteries? I don't think so, okay? Check them out. Those tools, some of them are real resources. We need to use them. You want to make sure they're there. PPE may bring you more harm than safety when they are improperly used. They need to fit your anthropometric characteristics. For example, you're using respirator. Have you thought about this? Will this thing fit on you? Will it? We all look different. We all have different facial dimensions. Okay? Now I'm going to let you take a closer look for a typical Asian figure. Okay? See? I have a pretty shallow profile. If you want that respirator to stay stably on your face, especially if you have to talk. Now what's going to happen is it requires 3 prominent features on your face. Okay, what are those 3? Come on, take a guess. Not that one. Ridge. Okay, you need to have a deep ridge. Which I don't have. What's the second one? Yeah, cheekbone. You need to have prominent cheekbones, which I don't have either. Okay? What's the third one? See this thing? It has a nose clip. That's a pretty good indication why you need it. Why you need a deep ridge. Okay? The upper strap is right next to the outer ring ridge. And the number 3 thing is you need to have a prominent chin. Okay? Alright? Now don't get me wrong. Having a short chin is not a bad thing. Have you seen our kids? You know, many people do that when they take pictures. Right? You look cute. Why? Because it narrows down your head. It doesn't look that big. So the opposite side of the other aspect is when you get a long chin, some people get upset, but don't. Because in order for this respirator to stay stably on your face, you need a prominent chin. So when you're using a respirator, as you talk, okay, if you find out gradually your entire chin is covered in the respirator, you're leaking. Trust me. You're thinking, you're that sure? Yeah, I'm that sure. You're leaking. It never fails. This diagnosis is Bible, okay? It's sacred. You're leaking, okay? But that still doesn't mean you can't use those respirators. Just when you're using them, be very careful. The movement, that's going to cause the leaking. The reason I'm telling you this is, for most of our kids, you go grocery shopping in Taiwan because of the air pollution. Have you noticed that many of our local folks, they always wear a flat mask? Have you wondered why? Well, let me tell you, if you think it's because there are germs in the air, no. Okay? They get that, we get that, we are accustomed to wearing flat masks after the avian flu. Okay? So it's actually considered hygienic. For example, if you're coming down with flu or you're having a cold, okay, it's a safer practice. But the other reason is that people get accustomed to the idea of wearing a mask. You know, anyway, that's actually true. If you check them out, you know, when they cover the lower portion of their face. Well, I didn't invent this. Someone told me. They say you look prettier that way because your brain would just make up for the unseen part of your face. Okay. Well, but the other thing is we get accustomed to the idea of wearing red mask. I know if you're not used to doing that, when you talk to someone who's wearing a mask, you'll probably get, do you have to do that? You know, can I just see your face to feel the real person? But in Taiwan, at least Taiwanese, when they talk to each other, it is not considered important, okay, to wear a mask. So next time we are talking to someone who doesn't know the difference in wearing a mask when talking to people, don't be offended. That's just the way it is. But the point what I want to tell you is, if you are concerned with air pollution, you're thinking about using those flat masks, that's not going to help. Because if you're wearing those, or better yet, you know, when you go back to your laboratory, go check it out from your domestic colleagues, Taiwanese students. Ask them, tell them to put it on, then you can tell. Actually, there are always gaps on the rim where air can freely exchange with the ambient environment. Think about it. What drives the air to pass through the filter, the mask? You're breathing, right? When you breathe in, you suck in all the gas, the air molecules inside the mask, and it turns to negative pressure. Then that drives the airflow, force the airflow to move across the filter. But what if it's not completely sealed? Then no air is passing through your filter. It's just getting from the side, from the gas, okay? Unfortunately, for all those flat masks, they can't do the work, okay? They cannot provide a complete facial seal. That's why in our classification, they are not respirators. Okay? So when I'm telling you this, you're going to see a lot of people on campus, so you're not wasting your time this afternoon. You've heard it from me. You're going to see a lot of people wearing flat masks in the laboratory. That's just a complete waste, because that's not helping you. To make the matter worse, if you are wearing an N95 mask when you're handling normal hexane, you're actually hurting yourself. Because N95 mask is designed to remove the filter of particles. Those are fibers, woven fabrics and non-woven fabrics inside the mask to serve as a filter. Think about it. For gas molecules, they cannot be filtered out. What would you do? Get absorbed by the fibers. Then your respirator turns into a concentrator. Okay? So once it breaks through, it's going to be 10 times at least higher than the original concentration. Okay, so that reflects the point I was bringing to you. You want to use it, make sure you use it correctly. Okay? All right. Enough about that. It has to fit your facial characteristics. Oh, here's another good part. The risk of being exposed to toxic substance when you use them incorrectly is going to be huge, significant. Okay? All right, this is my favor again. Let's play it, and I'm going to let you to get another 10 minutes stretching your legs. Okay? Now, when it comes to safety glasses and electro, this is what you want to do, and this is what you don't want to do. Now, tell me. Let's start with the female student here. What's wrong? What's wrong? Come on. Yeah, no electro. Easy. Now the other thing you probably didn't notice is this is not a safety glasses. Okay? I'm going to get to that in a minute. The other thing is it's really, see, she understands she needs to use some hand protection using a glove while exposing her entire forearm. Okay? Don't laugh at her. Many people do it this way. Because they think if exposure should occur, the most vulnerable part or the most likely surface to be contaminated is through the palm. When in fact, and actually, all right, if you need to know, what's the area most easily exposed, contaminated? Forearm, not palm. This is not the area, usually forearm. Thighs. That's why you're handling chemicals. You should not in the habit of wearing short pants. Okay? One more place. Chin, forehead, especially back of your neck. Okay? So she's not protecting herself. What about this? What about her colleague here? Well, he has a pretty nice suit, And you know, he get the idea using those. But then the problem is, as you all pointed out, where are your glasses? And remember I was telling you, see, this is our tendency. We do it this way. We lean forward. Okay? So what about her? Last week, there was an academia seminar. You know that place in Chen-Peng? there was a person saying, nothing wrong. She's the boss. She can do whatever she wants. I don't care. I don't care it's your big professor, okay? You have no business. Don't be there. If you want to go in and do something, inspect, maintain, or manage something, do what other people do. Put on the lab coat. Okay? That's what you should do. Then, here is some clues. Closed shoes is good, okay? So that's no, that's no, that's definitely no, and no, 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 no. Okay? I'm showing you this one because Taiwan is pretty warm, so during summertime, it's more convenient. Sometimes it's stylish. I know slippers, you know, they could be quite expensive too if those are imports from Paris. But the thing is, in laboratory, you're not supposed to do this. See, that's what I tell my students. I tell my girls, you know, when you guys come in, you could wear sandals, slippers, I don't care, but once you are in the lab, you could put a pair of shoes, closed shoes in the lab. You know, in the lab, you wear them. When you're out, you know, getting your foods, do window shopping with your friends, you could slip back into your sandals, okay? You want to protect your feet. Remember, Sir Isaac Newton said, this is Earth, this is a place of gravity. Anything you tossed up in the air is going to land on your feet, especially if you're sitting or standing right in front of the bench, okay? Protect yourself. All right, you got your 10 minutes, go. All right, final round, okay? We're done with the shoes. Let's talk about your eye protection. This is what you need. Don't overlook the potential of getting hurt when they're not protected. Because there are just way too many things in the laboratory that will be able to produce hazards capable of moving at a wind momentum. Okay? For example, it could be from impact, cutting, slicing, grinding, sculpturing, any other tasks, producing objects of debris capable of flying this momentum. Heat, you know, you're operating high temperature furnace oven, melting welding work, any other task producing high temperature. Chemical, handling and treatment of chemical specimen, dust, woodwork, okay, and light. Okay, that's another issue here. So you see there are a variety of sources capable of producing these hazards. Now, your choice will be using safety glasses, right? The reason you do that actually depends on what type of samples you handle. If it's, for example, those flying debris I was talking about, mechanical harms, all right? Remember I was telling you that that girl, the glasses she had on wasn't designed for use as safety glasses. Because usually safety glasses, to say the least, you should have sight on, okay? You should have a shield. The more recent one, the fancy one, they actually get a pretty big cover, okay? To close up the gap around your eyebrow, as well as, you know, there will be other additional coverage. Radiation, that's a different concern. You're handling UV or visible light, okay? You do DNA observation. This is your tool. You want some protection to shield away those potential radiation. Then the safety glasses are what you use. Now the problem is, now this is a typical safety glasses. I'm sure you're all familiar with these tools. Certainly you can tell goggles provide better coverage than safety glasses. But then mostly people are thinking, I don't want that. You know, that looks pretty clumsy, and in a way, pretty big, very uncomfortable to use. Says, whoa. If you're handling biological samples, this is perfect. You see, I have a pretty big lens, right? It could be entirely covered in. What you don't notice, there are 4 breathing holes here. We call that breathing hole. Because as you sweat, okay, the water evaporates from your eye surface. What's going to happen is those water vapor will be released because it turns positively pressure. Okay? So once that happens, these breathing holes, kind of like locking device, will release the pressure out. So it works pretty well. Now, the downside is probably is thinking, well, could it be as hard as the other conventional goggles to resist mechanical harm? I can't say for sure, but to some extent, I never doubt its capability. Even though, in the instruction they won't tell you that. They're not going to tell you it's capable of resisting. But still, just by the sound, one could, pass it around, so you guys can check it out.
Certainly, I need it back at the end of the day. Okay, the problem. Okay, so goggles, that's one thing you could consider. Welding face shield, you guys don't need about this. Light building lenses, this is actually a pretty good choice. During summertime, many of the glasses people are using in Taiwan, they can change color to figure out solar radiation when walking outside. As a matter of fact, mine can change too. Okay? These are the things that you could consider to protect your face. A few words about contact lenses. I could never use contact lenses because I got dry eyes. But some people are used to it. I could only tell you wearing contact lenses as the most conservative intervention approach is prohibited. But if you have to use it, okay, think about what could happen and use additional protection. For example, that goggles, I don't know what it is. Flying about. That's okay. You guys keep asking about. That's a good choice. Because if you're using contact lenses, you're going to need additional protection. The reason is, you'll know, if you are a contact lens user, you know what I mean. At the end of the day, your eyes get pretty dry, pretty sore, you have to take it out. But think about it. Why is it dry? Because your tear ducts aren't secreting nicely or smoothly, okay? And the natural defense of your eyes, when you're seeing something flying towards you, what would you do? Wait? No, you close your eyes. And usually, if that debris or that something's flying with sufficient momentum, what would you do is, unavoidably, you're going to close your eyes, shut your eyes in a very aggressive manner. Okay, that means very quick, vigorously. Okay? Then what happened is, very likely what would happen is, you tend to push your contact lenses down. It got stuck there. Now, if it was chemical spill and the chemical did get into your eyes, what you had to do first thing first was trying to remove those contact lenses. Mind you, you got chemical spill in your eyes. That's going to be very difficult. Okay? I had that experience before, so I know. I wasn't spilled. I was helping people. Now the problem is, see, that person is not going to. He or she is not going to want to open up eyes. Okay? And many of them were in shock. They actually fell asleep. This is what you do. Make sure they don't go into sleep. And tell them to open up the eyes. You gotta somehow manage to take out those contact lenses. Okay? Then you do rinsing. You know how to do rinsing on the eyes?
Don't squirt. You don't do that, okay? You don't squirt water towards the eyeball. Remember, it's chemical spill. The eyeball probably must hurt someone already. Someone hurt. You start by, well, you tilt the person's head. The textbook would teach you start from the inside, okay? But it doesn't matter as long as the person is cooperating with you. You can start with outside or inside corner, but tilt his head and tell him to go inside first, okay? That's the difficult part because he's not going to do that. Trust me, okay? So you got to keep that person cool while calling the ambulance, all right? So if you have to use contact ear technologies, okay, but that's for your own safety. Thank you. Remember I was telling you, contact lenses, you may not want to use it when working in the lab because the reflective shining of your eye, that's a problem. And some chemical in the form of vapor, they can permeate through the lenses. In a way, it's like when you're wearing gloves, you know what happens when you're wearing gloves? Your skin gets moist, right? So if a chemical can move inside the glove, they have no problems being dermally absorbed. It's the same theory here. If you cover your eyeballs with contact lenses, that's just like gloves covering, your hands, your skin, and that's going to be a problem. And if the chemical can get inside the lenses, they would interact extensively with your ocular tissues. And long-term uses, well, that's going to reduce the sensibility of your cornea and stop the secretion of tears and weakening your natural defense. All right, respirators. I don't think I can get as far as I want to, the last part for gloves, but you're welcome, just stay after the lecture if you want to talk. But I promise I'm going to finish respirators, okay? Well, when it comes to respirators, there are two primary models. The first one is what you know of as dust mask. That's to remove solid, liquid particulates. Okay, you have filters. Okay, what would the conventional filter look like? This is a filter, right? It comes with a face piece. Okay, but for the time being, just learn this is a filter. It's the same thing. The same filter is used on those filtering face piece, those masks. But certainly this one is more fibrous. Okay? So it depends on you want convenience or more security, more safety. Okay? Those filters will filter them out. Once they filter those particles out, you get clean air. How would you get the air stream to cross the filter? Well, you breathe, right? You develop negative pressure inside the mask. Now this is, if you magnify the resolution, this is what you will see, okay? This is a clean fibers, a shot of clean fibers. And this one shows slightly used fibers. You know what? Actually, for a dust mask, it functions for the best when it's used for 1 to 2 hours. Okay? A brand new one is not going to work as effectively as a slightly used one. Why is that? Take a look. You effectively, what is chemistry 101, right? Light dissolves in light. So you have those particles. They actually, when they get absorbed to the fiber, they effectively extend the surface of the fiber. So I actually have another picture, but it's not in this set of slides. In that one, you can see those how those particles chain up, they grow up each other. They become an anchor, leaving the air, to slap and break the other particles. This is what they do. Now, the other type is gas mask. Gas mask is for removal of gases and vapor contaminant. Now, this is slightly different. You do this. You remove gases contaminant by using, for example, molecular sieves or, more commonly, activated carbon. Okay? Now, obviously, you can see this is much bigger than those fibers. Why is that? Because usually it absorbs these particles at a relatively low efficiency. What happens is for the activated carbon granules, okay, there are cracks on the surface. That's the sorption size. Okay, so we are using this thing. You're going to see, now this is the profile, showing you the gradual saturation of the activated carbon bed by the contaminant. Okay? Well, there's actually a way of knowing that. So let's stop here for a minute and let me tell you the story on respirator. No mask. This is how originally a respirator will look like. So what? Always look like this? Pretty much. Respirators initially are designed for mining. For example, if you're in a mine, okay, you're a miner, and there's low oxygen, you couldn't breathe, that's when you use this thing. And in the mine, usually, there are heavy clouds or particles. Okay, it doesn't matter if it's suspended in the air or not. In confined space, that's always a problem. So they use respirators. What you don't know is actually most occupational safety and health regulatory agencies initially did research entirely for mining. Okay? So this is what they look like. On my right hand here, this is called face piece. It goes on your face. If it doesn't fit on your face, you get a problem. It doesn't matter how good this thing is. It doesn't fit on your face, you get a problem. Now this is a canister. It's loaded with activated carbon, and I know it's for removal of gases contaminant. How would I know? It's color banded. It has a color strip. I can't read them, but you don't have to. Well, if you want to read them, I think that's font size number 1 or 0.5 maybe. Okay, it's written with all the gases contaminant. Acidic gas, okay, this particulate, all right, but fear not, because most respirators are, well, this is a disclaimer that comes first, okay? I'm not a salesperson for 3M, but they are in fact the largest manufacturers of respirators in the world, so unavoidably, when I check into my collection, over 90% of my respirators come from them. So usually if you try to remove gases contaminated, this is what you would use. Okay? The way you use is you put them together. See, this is the gas. This is the air inlet. When you breathe out, how would the air be exhaled? See the nose cup here? Okay, there is an exhalation valve here. Okay, the way it works is when you exhale, because it's positively pressure, that's going to push the air to move out through the exhalation valve. And when you breathe in, there's a liner inside that actually shuts the door, so the air couldn't come in this way. They have to come in, okay, from the inlet. Now, this is a conventional one. What's the advantage using it? First of all, it's elastomeric. It's elastomeric, so it doesn't matter. For example, I was telling you I don't have problem with cheeks falling, but still, if I use this, that wouldn't bother me, because it covers all the way from your forehead to your chin. So whether or not you have a deep ridge, it doesn't matter. All right? So it has a better fit, pretty much for everybody. But, well, the downside is clumsiness. Okay, it's not easy to use. I get a student last year, okay, from London. Mark from London. Mark was asking me, hey, can I use this thing? What's the best respirator I can use to protect against PM2.5? Certainly I was telling him a story that I was telling you guys. still, he wanted more protection. So he said, "Can you use this thing outside?" I said, "Sure, but you got to understand, if you're writing up, when you're using this, because it fits your face way too better, way too well, you're going to have a pretty strong breathing resistance. That means you can breathe easily." Then Mark was saying, "Well, I was talking about riding a scooter." Well, that's a different story, but really think about it. You want to ride a scooter wearing this thing? Well, it's not hollow. Well, the end of this month, that's hollow. It's not every day. Okay? It's not a very good idea. So for ease of operation, then we later on have different design. Okay? What would be that different design? For example, this is still elastomeric plastic, elastomeric base piece. Much easier to use. Okay? Then you're thinking, well, you need to have those prominent cheekbones and rich thing. Not necessarily, because elastomeric face piece always fits on your face better. And not to mention, because you have an exhalation valve, so you don't get wet inside. It doesn't get moist inside. That's a lot easier. So it doesn't slide on your face. Okay? And this harness is much, much better than those straps. So what I'm saying is the face piece won't move on your face. And the way you use it, once again, is putting on the filter. Okay, I'm not going to put both of them on. By the way, because I'm traveling, so I only bring with me one for each. Okay, you're supposed to use a pair. You're not supposed to find two different fibers like what I'm doing right now. Okay? But the funny thing is, well, we are talking about N95. I will tell you about that part. But take a look. What's this thing? Yeah, P95. NRP system. That's the US NIOSH system for classification of respirators' filtration efficiency. Okay? The equivalent system used in Europe, if I flip it upside down, what do I get? That's a little bit. Yeah, P2. But that's okay. P2 means the filter inside is able to filter out at least 94% of particles with a median size of 0.3 micrometer. That's a tongue twister. 0.3 micrometer is the size that scares, that the respirators are scared the most. That's the killer respirators. Do you know Achilles? Seen the movie Troy? Brad Pitt, the person is playing, the person you have to shoot the ankles to make him dead. Okay, that's the Achilles. Any particle size greater than 0.3, smaller than 0.3 are fine with respirators. Okay? They don't like particles of 0.3. Okay? So to answer your question, PM2.5, that doesn't care. Respirator, they remove those particles, no problem. Okay? Fairly well. Now, like this one, this is P100. Then you got P3. See, P3 means 100% removal. As a matter of fact, 99%, okay? Once again, the NIOSH classification is P-class, 100% efficiency. The European efficiency equivalent is P3. Okay? There is a difference between the NIOSH system and the US system. NIOSH system don't have anything less than 95%, okay? Removal efficiency. Whereas the European P1 is good for removal of 80%. You need to keep this in mind. Why? Because the European system is not entirely applied to industrial respirators. Think. if you're working with toxic chemical, 80% efficiency means your filter allows 20% of the particles to get inside the mask. Is that what you want? You're working in the laboratory? Then you have to evaluate the risk. Remember, first thing I told you, you have to decide what percentage is good, or is safe enough. Okay? Yeah, you're thinking the greater the better. The greater, the more difficult to breathe. That's breathing resistance. So you have to balance. Okay? Those are the conventional filters. Could we do it any other way? Yeah, why not? Cartridge. Now, how would you know it's actually a particle removal device? It's always labeled on the surface. You can read, they have, like this one is P100. Okay? So you got all these descriptions. That's a problem. But when you're using a elastomeric respirator, phase-based respirator, there's no such a thing as particles or as dust mask or gas mask, because it depends on what type of filtration device you put out. Like this one, color banded, so that's activated carbon. Then I just switch this thing from the dust mask into a gas mask. And the beauty of this is, see, for gas mask, but not for particle, not for dust mask. There's a window here. See? It's colorimetric, so the color will change when it's fully saturated. Okay? All right, the black color means it's for acetic gas. Now you're probably wondering when the color changed, what would be the color? Usually it's red or green, green background or red background, the complement color. Okay? But that one you're not seeing any change in color because I didn't smoke it. You have to smoke it hard enough. You need to have a very high concentration. Okay? Then you're thinking, well, what if my laboratory has those particles and toxic gases? How about this one? Yeah, this is a combo. This is a combination. Okay, it's color banded, right? And on the top here, you have filters. Okay, you're thinking, great, let's use this one. Hold on a minute. Think about the weight. And I only put on one of them. When in actual use, you need to put on two of them. All right? You're probably thinking then, why do we always have use those heavy type? Well, let's go with some easy one. Now this is many of you have seen this, right? Okay, this is model 8210, okay? Now, when it comes to, this is called filter and base piece, because the filter is combined together with the base piece. So it's called filter and base piece. If you check out the European standard, remember that P1, P2 you guys saw? That will be changed effectively into FFP1, FFP2. That's filter and base piece. Now, this is a basic model. That's why I'm showing to you. Usually it's in cup shape, it has pretty rich, hard rim, so you can't change the shape. But you're going to notice some of these respirators. Now, where the head strap is, that's going to have an effect on your facial. Like this one is on the outside, okay? Is it good? Well, most hospitals in Taiwan and laboratories like to use it only because it's cheap. Okay? Now this is an N95. Did you notice when I'm passing, those filters I'm passing around, they are either P or R, higher class, whereas N means not resistant to oil. Okay? So this is actually a lower class. But if you're working in a hospital, unless you're working with oily material, okay, otherwise this one should still be good. What you should be concerned with is your facial dimension with this one. Okay? Now the other thing is respirators are market driven. So in Taiwan, for example, this specific model, I could only find one model planned to be fitting all, one size fitting all. When in fact, I just happen to know that's not true. Okay? Actually, they come, if you're buying this either in Europe or in the United States, they come with large, medium, small. But because we don't have a very big market, so in Taiwan we don't have a big market, so when they do import, they only import the medium size for men and say that's one size fit. Okay? So if you know the trick, but not to worry, you know, unless you do a fit testing and find out it wouldn't fit you, that's still okay. But that's the conventional one. Remember I was telling you, well, you know, it may not be very comfortable. So then what you do is people get smart because that one doesn't protect you well. See the head strap? Much better. Wider length. Okay? So it stays on your face better. The best of these designs is it even comes with an exhalation valve. Now, those respirators you probably have seen, but I bet you've never seen this one. More expensive, that's why you haven't seen it, okay? All right? You're probably thinking, where did I get all this from? Literally, I'm not kidding you. I have more than 1,000 different models. All right? I'm a big fan of, some people collect plants, you know, I collect plants. So it's a horrible thing, actually. When I'm in public things, I always pretend I'm asleep. So next time if you see me and I'm playing that piano, you can wake me up, okay? The reason is it has become an occupational hazard. Somewhat like a disease. When I see people, I check out their facial dimension. That's what I did with you guys, but see, you hardly know this, right? But that's what I did because I do this comparison. Find out, for example, I work with NIOSH, and I also work with the British 3M, comparing the British population versus Taiwanese population and the American population in terms of facial dimension, okay, and how that changed the respirators. So I check out people's faces. So my wife told me not to do it. So. And that was, well, you know, that was a very sound advice. So since then, when I'm riding on bus, riding high-speed train, I always close my eyes, right? Be very nice. See, that was a pretty good design. But remember I was telling you elastomeric face piece actually fit better. In terms of, well, you know, for this to work properly, you need to have filter. As well as, remember, it has to fit your face. See this one? No, well, make no mistake. This is for use only one day. It's disposable. Get it? Disposable means at the end of the day, you dispose of it. Yeah. Why do they do this? See? Better filter. Exhalation valve. And look at this hair strap. Jesus. This is perfect. And look at the nose liner. So it wouldn't have any problem hitting your face, okay? Then you're thinking, great, let's get it. Well, hold on a minute. This one is 270 NT a piece. You want to do the translation? Which currency you want to do? You want to do US dollars? That's $9 a piece. Good for 8 hours. Okay? What I'm showing you is, you really, you know, despite what you think, when it comes to respirator, there's a variety here. Okay? You should really evaluate. And if you think it's adequately used, still you have to find out, you know, what will fit that.
Sorry, I normally would spend more time. Just let you display them to you and let you get your hands on these tools. I have less time than I thought today, so gotta move on. All right, see, these are the respirators you are circulating. Okay, so I don't need to repeat, you know, what I just said. Elastomeric face piece. A few words on elastomeric face piece. Now, the full face piece, that's hard. But as a matter of fact, if it's half face piece, it actually doesn't, you know, if you're using it in your laboratory, it's not very hot to use. Okay, as long as you have an exhalation valve, it should be okay. Now, this is a typical gas mask. See, the reason I was doing that demonstration, I want you to know, when you're using elastomeric face piece, there's no such a thing as dust mask or gas mask. It depends on the type of filtration device that you're using. Okay? The air driven by negative pressure is going to develop, you know, a chance for the airstream to move across. Okay? Now, here, boys and girls, here's another thing you need to know. When it comes to respirators, okay, this is what happens. What you guys are passing through the filtering face piece and half face piece. These are what you would apply in normal workplace. For example, your laboratory. It doesn't have to be a chemical spill. But if you do have a chemical spill, you should go with a higher level protection. You need to go with full face piece or PAPR. Okay? Now, anything below this line I'm drawing here is called air purifying respirator, APR, air purifying respirator. Do you know why? That means you trust the air inside this room is still good enough. With some filtration, you can still breathe it. If you're not sure, okay, you don't know if the filtration is good enough to do the work, you don't go with air purifying respirator. You go with either airline or air supplying respirator or self-contained breathing apparatus. In this case, you're bringing in your own gas cylinder, your air cylinder, or pressurized oxygen. Okay? Now there's a category here called PAPR, Power Air Purifying Respirator. It has a filter, so by the very definition, it's still air purifying respirator. But it's connected to a power, so it stirs up the air without you breathing, sending the air into your mask. Okay, so it becomes always positive in pressure. What's the advantage of that? See, the contaminant wouldn't find its way in. Okay? All right. You've been waiting for this. This is the NIOSH or classification for the filters. Mind you, this is particulate respirators. Remember I was telling you N95 is no good with gases contaminant? Okay? By now you should know that. We have three classes. This is not resistant to oil, resistant to oil, and particle proof. Okay? So which one's for the best? Certainly this one. That's why, you see,
you go with elastomeric phase piece, you always go with this one or this one with a higher efficiency, filtration efficiency. Okay? 3 levels. If your respirator filter can filter out 95% of 0.3 micrometer particle, 95. 99%, 99. And there's no such a thing as 100% statistically. So 99.7 or 99.97, that's hot. Okay? Now, is this absolute? No. Okay? But that should give you some ideas. Now, I want your attention on N, okay? Not resistant to oil means you can use it to protect against oil particles. So if by any chance you're handling oil particles, you have to switch. Or the other thing is you're using a respirator for a day, it's expensive, I know. So you don't want to throw it out at the end of the morning. What you could do is find a drawer, slide it in. Don't expose the respirator directly to the sun or to the light, okay? When you come back from lunch, then you can take it out and reuse it. But just remember, if you had a pretty big bowl of noodles or anything that's oily, rinse your mouth first, okay? Remember, those are oil particles. You don't rinse your mouth, you're turning N95 to N59, okay? You don't want that. Selection, what could you do? You have to do an evaluation first, understanding your chemical, and you need to know this. You know what fits me probably won't fit you. So there are several ways we can determine that. And you need to know protection factor and big factor. Now here, let me introduce something probably new to you. Ideal age, immediately dangerous to life or health concentration. Now this is the concentration by which we decide whether an air purifying respirator will work or not, okay? If it goes beyond this, if the concentration goes beyond this, you cannot and will not use the air purifying respirators. Your only choice will be air supplying respirator, okay? Remember, if the concentration goes beyond on-site, goes beyond ideal age, one of these things can happen. Death, irreversible effect, loss ability to escape. The irreversible effect here is referred to asphyxiation, for example, severe skin irritation or ulceration, okay? Now, when you use respirators for the purpose of supplying oxygen, this is what you need to know. This is typically what you have to be cautious against. When you're using air supplying respirators, okay, you want to go with 16%, right? Actually, 16 to 18 is okay, depending on the sea level of the land, okay? But two levels here that would alarm you. Number one is 12%, okay? If you're working, you're going to lose your hand-eye coordination. You can't stand straight, okay? That's what happened. But remember, if you're involved in emergency response, this is actually a critical concentration. Because it gets too low, you can't function normally, okay? 6% to 8% death in a matter of minutes. Remember I was telling you the protection factor number? Now, how do you do the calculation? This is a good number you want to keep in mind, because if you want to use a respirator, you need this number, okay, to compare it against. Operationally, when we do measurement, we take a measurement of the contaminant in the air. Then after you put on your respirator, you breathe, and we see what's the concentration of the contaminant inside the respirator, okay? So the division here gives you a ratio. So for example, you're using chemical A, one is benzene, okay? And as a result of your determination, you find out the APF, this is called assigned protection factor. The PF is 50 for this compound, or benzene or normal hexane, doesn't matter. What does it mean? That means for every 50 particles of this compound, your respirator is allowing only one of them getting inside. So once again, back to rule 1. Is that good enough for you? For very toxic chemical, it may not be. I'm giving you that 50 number because this guy can give you 50. Those filtering-based spaces you're passing around, 10. Okay? Flat mask, 1. You think, what? What do you mean 1? Yeah, they're not filtering out anything. Remember, I was telling you that part. Because it wouldn't fit on your face. Whenever you breathe in, you're sucking in every gas molecule. Okay? With the contaminants. That's what happened. Okay? See, that's N95 models and your surgical mask. Now I want to have your attention. You probably are looking at these 2 against these 3. Look at how high the number gets. But what I really want to have your attention on is, look at this. For N95 mask, this guy can have a protection factor, fit factor over 200, and this guy has only 4. So what makes you more 50? Okay? This is why when you're doing this, when you are finding a respirator for your personal use, it's very personal. It's like good things happening in your life. You never share it. You keep it to yourself. Right? When I help U.S. OSHA do the inspection, when I go for a site visit, I always tell them, I see, Bill, for example, you're having a respirator. Write down your name. Put it on your respirator. No one else should use it. Besides, it's not hygiene. Okay? You don't, do I need to say more? You don't do it, okay? But you're going to be surprised. A lot of people actually share their respirators because they have only 1 or 2, while they have people taking rotation, taking different shifts during the day, okay? And they wouldn't think the otherwise. They just use it. And when they're down, nobody was in charge of cleaning respirators, okay? Boy, that was horrible. Think about it. You have those activated carbon absorbing everything, okay? And nobody was in charge of cleaning. See, this is why it has to be personal. Then you know your tool. You're going to protect it, right? To find out if a respirator will fit you, you do 2 things. One is fit check and one is fit test, okay? I'm going to show you fit test first. This is what you do whenever you are selecting a new respirator, okay? And on the routine table after the holiday season, winter holiday season, Christmas, okay, or Chinese New Year, whatever you're celebrating on, you want to do another test because it tells you whether or not the facial dimension of yours will change. Another good timing to do the fit test is if you have a change in your body weight by 10%. But certainly you want to tell people, come over here, I think you have gained weight by 10%. Let me do a test on. Okay? You want to very dedicatedly dance around the line and say, hey, I haven't seen you for a while. Come on over, let's do some fun things. To ease the pain. Okay? 2 different ways to do this. You either do a quantitative way. Remember I was telling you those ratio, concentration outside the mask versus inside the mask. Or the other way you can do it is you actually spray either sugar, saccharin, okay, saccharin, or B-trap, that's benzoate, okay? It has a very bitter taste. If you must know what it tastes like, because I don't have those liquids with me, I can only tell you if you ever bit on your ballpoint pen or you accidentally tasted ink before, That was the taste. Okay? So we do this. This is to test whether, oh right, okay? So you're not supposed to taste anything, right? If it fits. So if you look at this guy gives you that face, you know, it's leaking, okay? It's not protected. Then what you need to do is just like what I did. You need to find a different respirator for this guy to test out once again, okay? This is when you're selecting a new respirator. This is what you do, okay? Then you do fit check. What's fit check? Once you have a respirator that supposedly will fit your face, still, what if every time when you put it on, you didn't put it on correctly? It's going to leak, right? So every time when you put it on, this is what you do. You know how to put on a respirator? All the demonstrations I've done today are wrong. You never touch inside the respirator. Depending on your left-hander or right-hander, okay? Actually, when I use most of the time I use my right hand. Although when I was a kid, I was a left-hander. This is what you want to do. When you put it on, despite what people tell you, my experience is, you want to put it on. Look, once it touches your face, your hand never leaves until the whole sequence is finished. Okay? You put it up against your chin, and then slightly let the upper ring touch your cheekbone. Okay? This is when, remember as a kid, when you do those funny, ugly face in front of mirrors, do them again. You want to do this because when you twist your muscle, those cracks, the respirator will find its way to sit on those cracks. Then they may become stiff. Okay? Once you get that part down, now there are two ways to do this. You could start with the upper strap, but I always start with the lower strap. You know why? Look at this part. Still, if you put on your upper strap first, you have to handle the lower strap once again. So, you know, one longer. So I always do this. Girls, comb your hair. High ponytail will be better because that provides a stable spot for your upper strap to sit down. Boys, you have to shave, okay? Because if you have if your hairs are pretty vigorous, that's going to create space, gaps, you know, on your face. No, hands are not off yet. Now do the funny face once again to make sure, you know, it stays up there. And then this is time when you apply some pressures to fix the nose strip. If you're not feeling painful with this, you're doing it the wrong way. You do it right, it's going to hurt. Okay? It definitely won't hurt. Remember, this is a feeling face piece. This is the only part that's going to keep the mask on your face in a state. All right? Then you do heat check. Positive pressure and negative pressure. Positive pressure means you blow. Don't blow too hard. You can hyperventilate. You can feel dizziness. Okay? So you don't want to do that. Blow it nicely. Okay? You should be feeling, what should you feel? Breeze on your palm. But if you feel, you know, there are cool breezes all around, or even you see, oh, hey, you know, I can't remember what's the last time you had it. It's me. Then you breathe in. All right? That's slightly different. That's a negative pressure test. Okay? Once again, you should feel the breeze on your fingers. Okay? Not outside the ring. All right? When you're done for the work, remember, see the marks here on my nose. So there's no easy or comfortable way to use it. Okay? You want to use it and you want comfort. You want to leak. I assure you. I guarantee you. Okay? So this is how you do it. When you're done with it, don't do this, okay? My pocket. No, you don't want to do that. not quickly. Okay? Find a place, start, and you know, so you can actually place it there. Try it out, and you can use it in the afternoon again. So you see, that's why you don't want to use it over again. It's just not magic. And this one actually will fit you better. Okay? See, 6 extracts. Now you're overthinking way too much. I'm not putting this out. Okay? At my age, I don't want to lose too many hairs. But wife, you must know. This is the sound of the strap. And as a matter of fact, many people cannot put the song by themselves. Okay? If you're a first timer, my advice is find someone helping you. Okay? Can I put it up? Sure, but that's not part of my demonstration today. But I'm going to show you this. I want to show you how nicely this will fit into your face. Okay? Once again, hold it open. Okay? Make sure it covers your chin.
And I'm putting it on. See? Make sure. You sense it? I'm applying more pressure. It's getting more and more pressure. Okay? This is very painful, so I'm going to do that with you. You better watch closely. I'm going to do a big check. How would you do big check? Remember, this is actually exhalation valve, okay? This is the air inlet, right? So watch how the face moves. Flash into my face, okay? Hear that? We didn't get to see this, see? Okay, one last time. Air inlet. Hear that?
That's how nicely it fits in your face. Well, look at my face. Not everybody get to play iron. Okay, remember this part. But you know, come to think about it, they're using better helmet. I saw that in influenza people 2 months ago. Not Iron Man. I saw the new generation. You know, Florence. Okay, Florence. They are displaying. I was attending a conference. They have a new generation respirator. That actually looks like a big bubble on your head. Computer that way. Okay. That's 5 after 5. So I'm going to let you guys go. All right. If you have additional questions, you're welcome to stick on this question. All right. Do you need to sign up once again to get your credit? Or you're done? You're done. Go. Go get your food.